Hello, Steve White, Trek Boy 89 for Steve Arts 89, Star Trek's Alleged Gatekeeper. Okay, so I'm hearing a lot of chatter about Khan in Strange New Worlds and Picard. Now, when I saw Sung pull out that file from 1996 about the Khan project, I assumed that that was a project, that was a report written on the whole Khan situation after it had been resolved, after he'd lost his power and been imprisoned and basically was to be sent off into space. And that he basically continued that work, which is what he does in Enterprise, like, you know, his ancestors do, you know, hundreds of years later. So I didn't think too much about it, but I'm hearing a lot of people say that that report was some sort of theory, although it was named after Khan, who is a character that already existed. Supposedly now he's supposed to create Khan in the future. So now 20 years from now, or something like that, we're going to have, although they did grow at a fast rate, I think, the embryos. So 10, 20 years or something from now, apparently we're going to have the eugenics wars. And this was something that they'd mentioned in Strange New Worlds, that after the Second Civil War, which is either happening or hasn't quite happened yet, before the Third World War, we had the eugenics wars. So now supposedly people are saying Strange New Worlds and Picard, this new alternative universe reboot, the reboot series, Picard, Discovery and Strange New Worlds, have moved the eugenics wars out of the 90s, because it didn't happen in the 90s apparently, you know, because in our world we didn't seem to have, you know, any indication that Khan was ruling a third of it while we were just going about our daily lives. But that was sort of explained in novels, and they made that work. So supposedly they've just moved it 20 years into the future. So we're going to have the same problem in 20 years when it doesn't happen, and they have to explain how this big giant event in human history didn't actually happen in our history. So they've just gone and moved a problem into the future and created a new problem instead of finding a way to explain how it happened in the background and we didn't actually, like on the screen, explain how it happened in the background, how we didn't see it, and then have Sung continue the work, you know, privately in the background and, you know, clandestinely, you know, wherever he, you know, whatever base he was on, whatever planet where he continued working or whatever. That would be the smarter way to do it. But oh no, not Kurtzman Trek people. No, they have to reboot a historical event, move a historical event from Star Trek history into the future, so they don't have the problem now because they know they won't be around in 20 years to deal with it. That'll be someone else's problem to explain how a second eugenics wars didn't happen in our history. God, I was starting to enjoy Strange New Worlds, but now people are theorizing that Laan Noonien Singh is actually going to be Khan now, or there's going to be she's some sort of sleeper agent, and somehow she's, you know, I can't even think about the idea of how stupid that will be if the series turns into like a Khan series where like she's like the enemy and she's like infiltrated Starfleet and now they have to deal with her and she's, you know, the enemy within or something, and I'm like, no, I just assumed she was a descendant of Khan's people from, you know, hundreds and hundreds of years before, and she would just have some sort of, you know, stigma with that, and some sort of issues with her genetics that they have to deal with because she's a descendant of genetically engineered people. That made sense to me. That's what I thought they would do. That's interesting. That has implications that can be explored. But apparently now people are suggesting that somehow we're going to have Space Seed in Strange New Worlds, and she's going to be the Khan character. And I'm like, is that totally ridiculous? And then I sort of thought of all the things they've done on Discovery and Picard, and I thought, oh no, it's not ridiculous for them. So now I'm like, oh, what fresh hell is this? I was just about to subscribe to Paramount Plus and enjoy Strange New Worlds as a reboot, but a reboot that at least fits within, you know, basic Star Trek and is enjoyable as basic Star Trek. But if they're going to turn the series into like a Khan series, because the other talk is that the reason why they're not doing Nicholas Meyer's Khan series is because they're planning to reboot the whole Khan thing, so there's no point doing a series based between Star Trek the original series and Star Trek the movies, which is where the 3-episode 3-night miniseries Khan was supposed to be set, because that's not going to happen now. And I'm like, oh, for God's sakes. I'm not in the mood. But then again, a lot of stupid fans make stupid speculations, and maybe this is all just speculation, but there does seem to be an interview with one of the showrunners, I think, or writers, who is actually saying, well, yes, we had to move, Khan, because it didn't happen, and we need people to relate to something now. It has to be now for them, because they don't have the imagination to, look at history and things that happened in the past that can affect us now, or, that we have to have it in the future now, so we've moved it. And Spock must have just been wrong, and Khan must have been mistaken when he was talking about the years that this, I'm like, no, the original series Space Seed and Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan both refer to the eugenics wars. You can't change that and then say the show is still canon with the movies and the original series. It's a reboot. They can't have it both ways. They're trying to reboot everything, but it's still Star Trek, it's still Star Trek. I'm like, well, why are you doing that? Are you doing that for the old fans? Because they've already turned on you ages ago, because they've been slapped in the face so many times being told this is, these things that have changed are correct and accurate, and you're wrong somehow. And the Star Trek, the old shows are wrong, and the history is wrong. It's just so annoying. I'm like, why can't they either just leave canon as it is, or admit it's a reboot, where then they can do whatever they want? They kind of half tried to do it with Discovery when they moved Discovery into the future, but then they just backpedaled on it all anyway. God, it's just really frustrating. And I keep seeing these comments now from people talking about how the eugenics wars haven't happened yet, and how Khan is now, Leon is now going to be the space seed of Strange New Worlds, and that would make some sense in that, well, why doesn't Kirk know about that they had a Khan on the ship? Because she wasn't just a descendant who wasn't being, saddled with the history and was apparently allowed to go into Starfleet and all that without having her past, used against her. Apparently he doesn't know because it hasn't happened, because they've changed everything. So it's like, oh God, it's really frustrating. And the most frustrating people is the new Star Trek fans, or the old Star Trek fans who never actually followed Star Trek or understood Star Trek, lecturing actual fans and trying to gaslight us all and tell us that this is all happening in the future, it's all how it's supposed to be, and nothing's been changed, it's not a reboot. And I'm like, it's absolutely 100% a reboot. They're changing historical events, they are changing character, families, and they're race-swapping characters, inserting characters like Michael Burnham, who never existed back in Discovery. Stuff like that was already proof of a reboot. And now they're moving historical events and race-swapping characters. It's like, what more do you need to define this as a reboot? They've changed the ship, they've inserted, that was everything, they've inserted new technology that never existed, like the Spore Drive. They are changing the current technology. Now you can beam site to site inside the ship. You can beam easily. You can beam a medicine out of its canister into the bloodstream of a person and have it work instantly. Things like this that you couldn't do in the original Star Trek or Next Generation of Voyager, now you can suddenly do. These are all changes. Now, if you change technology because you changed the past and you've altered the future in a reboot, then that's fine, it all works. But if you're trying to say, no, it's the same universe, all the same technology, everything's the same, and then you have these people say, oh no, it's okay, you can change some things as long as you keep the main things right, then it's not a reboot. I'm like, yes, it's a reboot. That's what a reboot is. You keep some things and change some things. It's only canon if everything is consistent. It's just maddening. It's just, not to be judgy, but it's stupid people who can't understand Star Trek and can't understand continuity and can't understand just how this all works, and they just don't care, and they didn't live with the history, so it doesn't matter to them. People who watch Discovery and Strange New Worlds who haven't even watched the original Star Trek, and they don't care if it's thrown out and if it's inconsistent and it doesn't work, because they're not attached to it. But yet the people who are just being told that, oh, that doesn't matter now, we've changed that all and it doesn't matter, and this matters, this is now canon, this is, the same universe and canon, and that somehow it just doesn't matter. So the fact that it doesn't work it's just, oh God, I just can't even anymore. It's like every time I make my peace with the show being like a reboot and feeling like, well, we can move on, they're not going to acknowledge it's a reboot. We all know it is. We've seen now that it is a reboot through all the things that changed. But people are still denying it and arguing it and saying, first they're saying, oh, well, the original animated series wasn't canon, so it doesn't matter they race swapped April. And now they're saying, oh, it doesn't matter that they race swapped, what was his name? Chief, God, I've forgotten his name. They've race swapped that character but he was in the original series and Wrath of Khan. So how can you say those aren't canon? People saying, oh, the animated series wasn't canon. Now they're saying, well, it doesn't matter if they change it. It's still canon even though they've changed it. It's not making any sense. It's just people making excuses. I don't know why they're so attached to this lie. Just let it go. Just acknowledge it's a reboot. Accept it's a reboot. Move on. We can stop being divided and we can actually enjoy it as a reboot like I enjoyed the JJ films as a reboot. It's just a mess. I'm going to go. Bye.